Back in 1998, I had just bought my first really cool car, a BMW Z3M Roadster, of course with a manual transmission. And about 6 months later, BMW committed what I thought was heresy and introduced something called a sport activity vehicle. You and I would know it then as a sport utility vehicle, today a crossover. And I thought they had lost it, but apparently I was wrong, because they sold 630,000 of the first generation. Then they doubled down, and in the second generation sold 720,000, and still I thought they were wrong. And now, in the third generation, 760,000. So rather than crying over spilt milk that I wasn't the intelligent investor that Ben Graham is, let's take a look at the fourth generation of X5 and understand some of the large differences from Gen 1 to Gen 3 to now Gen 4 of something that is very fancy. So here's a case of not all is what it seems underneath the hood here. I'm going to present name, rank, and serial number, and you are going to swear you've heard these numbers before. 3-liter inline-6 twin-power turbo direct injected gasoline engine, good for 335 horsepower, comes in at 5,500 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 6,500 RPM, 330 pounds of torque, comes in at 1,500 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 5,200 RPM. Then there's the engine you and I are going to fall in love with, and that is a 4.4-liter V8. Sounds familiar? 456 horsepower. Sounds really familiar. Comes in at 5,250 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 6,000 RPM. And then the torque, 479 pounds. Comes in at 1,500 RPM, stays flat all the way to 4,750 RPM. Now the obvious question you are asking yourself here, and I sure as hell had the same question when I sat down and chatted with the engineers behind these engines, is why on God's green earth would you put so much investment into two brand new engines and come out on the other end with the same dimensions and the same output? Well, the answer is governments. The target of efficiency has changed, so BMW is kind of getting ahead of it, but they're also taking into account the fact they've got this new 8 Series, which we're very excited to drive. That spurred the change for the 8-cylinder, and they're doing this a couple of different ways. Changing in the ways in which they cool the engine. So for example, in the twin-turbo V8, they get more oil into the V to keep the turbochargers cooler. They're also changing the size of the impellers on those two turbos in the V8. Here they change the efficiency of the turbo in the 6-cylinder, but also change, like for example, the timing chain. It's been in the back in the previous model, but here they went from 2 timing chains down to 1. So it's a lot of small changes that amount to 2 more efficient engines. So good timing. Needed to get inside to get away from the rain, so let's talk about the interior. And here it's about what you'd expect from any modern day BMW. The design theme that was started in the G12 7 Series continues on here. It's been updated a little bit, like this center stack. It goes all the way into the instrument binnacle over there. But really what we need to talk about is color and trim and tactile feel, because that is where all the changes are. The black interior does nothing for this stunning blue exterior, but you can still see the tactile feel of the leather on the dash, the door panels, contrast stitching, and then this one's fitted with this satin finish gray wood. Wow. And then it's got the blue lighting that surrounds the wood. But it doesn't stop there. You remember the XC90, especially the T8, how it has the Orifice crystal shift knob? That, I think, is enough to get the XC90 and the T8 model. Here, they kind of ripped that off in that it's, I don't know if it's glass or crystal. It looks like cut glass. But what they've done is they have this cut glass on the top of the shift knob, top of the iDrive controller, and on the volume knob for the radio. This, I believe the glass for the volume knob as well as the buttons is available on the 5 Series, but this is to another level and just makes it not fancy, but an elegant place to be, especially when you consider it's a sport utility vehicle. Totally didn't expect this, but it's a super nice touch. And they moved the start button down here, and that also is finished in this like cut glass or crystal. And then they complemented that with toggle switches for the off-road controller. And then I think this is more of a UX thing, but it goes into tactile feel and design. The main control for the HVAC, the stuff you're going to use, the fan and the temperature, that's all the satin finish aluminum, where the rest of it is like regular black plastic. This, I didn't expect it to be this nice on the inside, but wow, what a difference. And I'm not talking about Blockbuster Video. The bits that impact driving dynamics are normally a very important part of these tech reviews, but here it's more important because A, this is a BMW, which translates to Freude am Fahren, and B, it's a BMW that's supposed to simultaneously do well on-road as well as off-road. To make that a reality, there are a lot of building blocks that go into it. Let's start at the front. It's a double wishbone setup. In the rear, it's a 5-link unit. From there, a number of things change. Every derivation of X5, even the most basic one, has adjustable dampers fitted as standard, so it's basically a steel spring setup. Then, as an option, there's an air ride suspension. It can be a standalone option, or it can be part of an off-road package, which we will talk about more in the coming full first drive review, so make sure you come back for that. And what the air ride system does is, yes, it adjusts the dampers, but really it adjusts the ride height. So like in a sport mode, it lowers the ride height 20 mils, or in an off-road mode, it increases the ride height by 40 mils. Or when it's sitting still, it can lower the whole vehicle 40 mils so you can easily get stuff in and out of the car, because after all, it's a utility vehicle. Then there are a couple of things that are attached to it, namely the wheels. Not 2 sizes on offer, there are 4 sizes on offer. There's 19 all the way through 22 inches, the wheelbase 117.1, and the overall length 194.3. Now that's all fine and good until you take into account the very hard fact that this, the most basic one on offer in the US, the inline 6 with a turbocharger, is 4,813 pounds. If that is not enough weight for you, there's a V8 on offer, 5,100 plus pounds. So even the bits that we talked about, not enough to keep it all in check and really get you to Freude am Fahren. So they've added active stabilizer bars front and rear, so it's basically a stabilizer bar with electric motors that can vary the amount of stabilization depending on whether your wife is driving it or an idiot like me. Meanwhile, back at HQ, wasn't able to do the Stinger missile test this go-around. However, the X5 is an unusually good candidate for one of those types of episodes. So we'll get it here in California and definitely do that. Who knows, might even try putting the Pagoda roof in that thing, because it'll probably fit. Anyway, do want to share some practicality of utility. So storage. With the seats up, 33.9 cubic feet. With the seats down, 72.3. Then there's towing, which I think is germane to this discussion because this is a crossover that has some torque to it. With a standard off-the-shelf hitch, meaning you get it anywhere you want, 6,600 pounds, BMW now shares a hitch, or really will sell you a hitch. But it's not like $5 grand or whatever it was on the last go-around. It's a dealer-installed option, and they promised me it does not cost as much as that car. And that's 7,200 pounds towing. So that's interesting when you consider the overall size of this vehicle and the way it drives, which I will cover in the coming full first drive review. I do want to leave you with a question, and Kumo and I spend a lot of time thinking about this. Notice I did not cover fuel economy in this episode because I don't think it has any bearing on a vehicle like this. Yes, it is for practical purposes. Yes, it is for a family. But if you're buying an X5, I don't think fuel economy is really in your top 10 of considerations. Am I right or am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, Motoman TV on Word, Motoman TV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if I'm wrong, we'll cover fuel economy, actually real-world fuel economy, in the coming Living With episode, which you got to give me at least 2 months to get to that because BMW's got to get the cars here in California. Until I see you next time, Kumo and I are going to go for a ride in a convertible. So, bis später.